The open border politics and estimated almost 10 million migrants coming to US in last 2.5 years, I think is a problem. And depending who you ask, it is number one concern for people, obviously right beside the inflation and economy. Now, before I jump to the migrant crisis in New York City and how this situation is actually crushing it, I just want to say I don't blame anyone trying to come to this country. They are obviously seeking better life for themselves and their families. However, I think this still doesn't mean that the border should be open, so anyone could just enter without any verification. And I think for anybody seeking asylum, for example, should enter through legit entry points in US and then try to process their asylum papers and then finally get the green card and citizenship. Look, what I'm just trying to say basically is that no matter what country you're living in, and obviously we're talking about US, that country cannot remain safe and secure if millions of people are going through the border, especially without any checks. Now, what I find absolutely amazing is that some of the sanctuary cities officials, first they welcome and even encourage the migrants to come. Here is some little speech of the New York governor.
We want people to come here, despite where they came from or despite the circumstances that drove them to this country and to this state. We say you are welcome here. We are welcome with open arms and we'll work to keep you safe. We'll not only house you, but we'll protect you. And the richness of the culture and the diversity.
And then when a lot of migrants actually show up in New York, for example, because they were sent to New York City on a free bus trip, courtesy, of course, of the Texas Governor Debit, then all of a sudden these officials start to block the buses from coming and giving sanctions and huge fines to these bus companies. Interesting, don't you think? Also, some of the cities actually declare state of emergency, yes, because of the migrant crisis, and they stating they can no longer take the migrants in, or at least not that many migrants. So in other words, they really welcome and want the migrants to come, unless of course they show up in their backyard. Okay, now I got it. Now coming back to the crisis in New York City, I actually don't know where to start. So first, with almost 200,000 migrants seeking asylum in New York, there is absolutely not enough shelters for them to live in. It got actually bad to the point when some building owners of the buildings that were not residential before are actually trying to convert these spaces into illegal shelters, and it seems like the city is helping them to do so. There is a lot of stores, even illegal basements, and some other non-residential properties currently being used for the shelters for the migrants, and this situation is literally becoming crazy. A lot of these places are not even safe for the migrants. They actually lack basic things like windows, ventilation, and some of these places don't even have showers and toilets, which is absolutely terrible. Now some same landlords try to take advantage of this situation. There was this one incident that the guy actually didn't own the building, and yet he was charging $300 per bed, and he literally had 60 people living in there, and since that building was not really his property anyway, he got $18,000 tax-free, which I guess is pretty creative, but this actually shows you how bad these asylum seekers are willing to live in any place in New York City, even if this place might be actually dangerous for them. So now, because of all this mess, the Department of Buildings and the police are actually evicting a lot of migrants. They can no longer live in these places, which obviously will create another problem, since they have to live somewhere, of course. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, there is also a food crisis situation for the migrants. So pretty recently, the mayor of New York approved the plan for $50+ million to give the debit or credit cards to the migrants, obviously so they can buy food, but the problem with this idea is that there is more and more homeless people in New York, and they don't get that card, and even some struggling New York City families that could use some help, but yet they don't get the same benefit, and that's why they think it's unfair. And by the way, same goes for these free food pantries, or places that serve the free food to their local community, and now they're also choosing to serve the migrants first, which again makes these poor local communities feel left behind. Besides all of this, there is a lot of stress put on the police department in New York, and especially that they were defunded before. This is really creating a dangerous situation even for the cops. Like we just saw a week or two ago, some illegal migrants started to beat up the police officers, so this entire situation is not getting any better, and I think it's getting way worse for New York City. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it at that, but you might want to check this video next. There is some important info in it too, and thank you for watching.